Happy Tuesday and welcome to the SPL. My name is Finch and we've got a pretty awesome set that's going to be happening here for you today. But I do want to give y'all a quick reminder. High-Res Expo looms before us. Make sure that you pick up your tickets now. You absolutely don't want to be left out on that event. And hearing about it on Twitter and seeing everyone's cool pictures and videos, make sure that you're there for it. You definitely don't want to miss it. So time to break down everything else that's going to be happening today. I'm going to bring in who's right here next to me. It's Taco. How you doing here today? Going to help me break down this set?
I'm feeling pretty good, Finch. But first of all, I just want to check and make sure. You said Tuesday.
What's up? Oh, Friday.
Tuesday.
Is it Friday? And I said Tuesday?
Yes.
All right. I don't know what that was all about. It's Friday, everybody.
We're
I'm here.
warping back in time.
We're here, everybody. It's time for Friday. I don't know. Thank God it's Friday, right? So I can go home next.
I'm just trying to make sure, man,
brain.
that I don't have to, get ready for Esports Weekly in the morning or something.
Fix y'all's graphic. It's supposed to say Tuesday. Come on, guys. Splyce and Spacestation are going to be the game that we're going into here, Taco. And this is a rough week for them. They had to play Dignitas yesterday, and now here's Splyce. It's definitely tough for them. Let's get the standings up here as well before we break down Spacestation's tough draw. These carry over from Phase 1, remember, so you got to make sure you're improving on those for Phase 2.
And honestly, this is very reminiscent of Space Station from Phase 1. If you think back to when they originally made their debut for Season 6, I mean, they had a pretty rough doubleheader to start off Phase 1 as well. But Phase 2, I mean, I think that this set matchup with Splyce, it's kind of bittersweet for me in a sense, because obviously Space Station know that Splyce are coming in with their new solo laner, SoloOrTroll. As far as prep time is concerned, there's been a little bit of downtime between MSI and Phase 2, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee that Splyce has had a ton of time to work with SoloOrTroll, and I think that Space Station should really look to try and maybe abuse that factor, especially since Aquarius is one of their premier players.
I think so too, and for what it's worth, I do think just about everyone had a rough day yesterday. We're going over some of the, the footage here from their match up against Dignitas that we saw yesterday, and they all had some struggles. I think BaRRaCCuDDa probably looked the best. He had a really good Morgan game in Game 1, but I mean, there were some times when Aqua looked like maybe Variety had gotten under his skin. I think hopefully he had a chance to regroup last night, because like you said, they're going to need him to exploit SoloOrTroll over there in the solo lane.
The things were definitely all over the place, and I don't think a single member from Space Station feels very good about what took place in that set yesterday, minus BaRRaCCuDDa. I think the only reason Bear should probably feel bad is because he didn't have enough of a frontline to really work with. But as far as gameplay is concerned, Bear definitely looked like he was probably the biggest carry factor, and I don't know how much of that can be attributed to the fact that Hunter role and duo lane specifically seems to be the place to be right now for carrying, since it's getting the most farm.
Yeah, the only problem is that job's not going to get easier for BaRRaCCuDDa here today. He's going to be going up against CycloneSpin across the way from him in that long lane, who's used to, by the way, having the day all to himself and just being able to lane freely and worry about ganks from some of his solo experience. So this might be even more familiar to him than he's used to. But speaking of an actual solo laner on Splyce, it's SoloOrTroll who they picked up. Obviously, Baskin went back to the minor league. He's playing down there with Armada. So it's SoloOrTroll who has big shoes to fill to come in here and make things work for Splyce.
These are definitely going to be some pretty important side lane matchups for Splyce today. But SoloOrTroll, I mean, the main thing to keep an eye out for on this player is the fact that he does have a little bit of inexperience. Keep in mind, the only SPL experience he's had so far was that set up against Rival back in Phase 1. And fine, okay, some great experience if you're coming in for the first time ever, but that was a decent amount of time ago, and like I've already mentioned, I'm certain that SoloOrTroll has probably undergone a little bit of scrim time with Splyce, but that period between MSI and Phase 2, I mean, it wasn't a drastic gap. It's not like they had all the time in the world, but one positive here is the fact that SoloOrTroll is an incredibly versatile player as far as Godpool is concerned.
That's right, and when SoloOrTroll is playing confidently, he can make huge plays for your team. The question is he going to be able to be that confident player? When he was just subbing in for the team, like you mentioned in that set that they had earlier in Phase 1, it looked like he wasn't quite sure about rotation. Some basic stuff that someone with SoloOrTroll's level of ability could certainly handle, and I think he hesitated on some of that. As long as he's comfortable in what his role is, he knows where he fits in on this team, I think that this Splyce team could be nearly as strong as when they had Basket.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's that confidence that we saw kind of wavering from time to time throughout that Rival set, and I think that, again, that can mostly be contributed to the fact that he's just a little bit unfamiliar with the pro level aspect.
He's also really young, too.
Yeah, being one of our youngest players, I believe 16
I think so, yeah.
currently. So it's really interesting to see how that kind of impacts the team mentality. But you also have to remember that there are heavy leadership members like Aror there to help assist him.
That's right. He's going to need that guidance as we move into the picks and bans for game number 1. Space Station will be in the first pick spot, which they were all day yesterday, which was Thursday, by the way, and not Monday, the day before Tuesday. Space Station were in that first pick spot all day yesterday, so we'll see if they can make it work for them a little bit better. I went back and I was looking through some of their picks and bans, and there was some stuff that I don't know went well. They were letting Zhong through a lot of the time, and it was giving them some trouble. You know, Khepri was making it through a lot for Trickstank as well, who I think had a really good day. There's so many bans now that we've upgraded it to 3 that you get in that first phase that you really have to make sure you're not letting it through anything too good.
Starting to see a lot of possibilities for some really strong options here as well. Interesting, though, that Space Station would elect to ban both the Erlong and Thor. Kind of surprising that they wouldn't try to maybe force Splyce into looking at those bans instead, but maybe Space Station just have a Scotty or a Chronos first pick on the mind. I mean, those are both very burst-heavy gods that I think one thing Space Station definitely struggled with in a lot of their team fights yesterday up against Dignitas was finding the damage necessary to actually confirm kills.
We even saw them ban out Isis, at least I think in game number 1 yesterday, so maybe that's something that does give them that same control that they also might value. She's one of those gods that got touched. If you hadn't had a chance to watch competitive SMITE here recently, we are, of course, on that mid-season patch. There's a ton of updates that came through. Thor is one who's been recently buffed. Isis has been as well. Scotty, wouldn't be surprised if you end up seeing her. There's a bunch of new items in that Arthurian tree, so things might look a little bit different in these picks and bans if you are just now hopping in with us for the Splyce SSG set, but this should feel familiar. Chronos and a Muzen Cobb, highly valued.
This was so wide open for Splyce. Excellent response picks, but more importantly, it just presents so much early game focus right now from Splyce. Isis and Muzen Cobb are both gods that are excellent at full clearing waves, and it's not even a guarantee, so to say, that this Isis is going to be mid. I know that this sounds bizarre, but Isis support is a very real possibility.
She has so much in her kit, right? And she already did with the silence. She has slows, the stun, obviously, but the 3 providing that health shield as well for the team, depending on how many she's able to catch inside that silence. There's a lot of tools at her disposal. I think I'm on board with Isis support with you. We'll see if that's what it is. But now that our Hercules has been locked in, that's for Aurora.
Makes it a little bit more difficult to assume that Isis could possibly be for support, but that's just part of the potency that Splyce has with their current team roster. It's just the fact that there are so many different flex pick options. I think that Splyce honestly has a lot of success because of the fact that they have so many different multi-role players on their team.
You're exactly right, and they're able to take the same types of picks and threaten you in multiple spots. So even when you do let it in, you know they value it, you don't quite know where it's going. So that's something that can make life a little bit harder as the Nemesis ban comes through here as well.
Talk about some heavy focus towards that assassin god pull. Scream's gonna have to dive real deep into the back pocket here, but taking a look at what Splyce is currently opted for, I mean, I wouldn't even be opposed to possibly seeing an Awelish here for Scream. Serqet, Anhur, both have leaps already in their kits. Awelish with the Feather Step and Gravity Surge is definitely going to have some early game presence as well that would pair really nicely with the current top 3 that Splyce have already opted for. As far as Space Station is concerned, I think that what I'm really looking for is just some hard crowd control. They need a little bit of lockdown to really let this Chronos and Anhur go wild.
You're right, though. Look at this focus. Even a Pele ban, they are not going to let Scream be the one who dictates the pace of this game. At least they're trying not to. But as you said, Awelish does feel like a decent pick in this spot. Even some synergy, obviously, with the Hercules to try and go along with, as you said, the good matchup into what SSG have already drafted. But maybe it's the Ares jungle. One more thing that you might not be used to if you hadn't been watching this first week of competitive, with that change to the Searing Flesh and doing the percent damage to minions now, or in jungle camps and such. It's pretty good for clear. Ares can fit there.
It's also not just the clear that I'm thinking about here, Finch, but the setup potential for this Isis, Muzen Cobb, a frontline consisting of Hercules and an Ares that can afford to go hybrid based if it is Scream. Gonna be rocking that Ares in the jungle. This is a really solid frontline that Splyce have already opted for, and I'm seeing Space Station with the hovering of the Amaterasu. I think that movement speed could definitely be important as far as trying to create some distance from those Ares chains, but I think it's more so the AoE side of things that I think Space Station should try to take a little bit more into consideration here, because you have to keep in mind Isis with her Circle of Protection and even Muzen Cobb with his Honey and Bees. that's a decent amount of jungle control in general. And if Space Station they have mostly single target damage, I feel.
Sure, and if this Amaterasu gets picked, that's for Aqua. Probably won't be in the fights right away. If they're happening around mid or even closer to that duo side, I think he's got the best chance if he picks this Ama to punish the Isis, the Muzen comp, some of these immobile characters with that CC immune crowd control that she'll have with Dazzling Offensive. I mean, Hercules and Ares won't be able to peel that. It's just that will it get there in time in these fights? Will Aqua be able to rotate over, or by the time he gets there, will it have been too late? So maybe they do need a little bit more of that AoE you said to try and supplement that, but they've already locked in the Fafnir too.
King Arthur to round things off for Splyce. This is a slam dunk of a composition from Splyce, but that's not to say that Space Station doesn't have certain components that could definitely overwhelm Splyce. If Splyce aren't able to establish that early game lead, Finch, there is a possibility that this Fafnir with the Coerce could just have the objective control that Space Station need to come out on top, but it is... God, I say that, but at the same time, it's trying to outfight Isis on objectives when she has such a huge confirmation in her ults.
It's so difficult, isn't it? I mean, this almost looks like a comp that Splyce would blind pick, honest to goodness. I mean, that's how much they like these particular gods in the roles that they've selected here for them. So it could be a difficult task for Space Station to try and slow this down. Some things they have going for them. Anhur gives you a ton of presence in the early to mid game. I love Chronos and Fafnir late. I think as long as they can stay even, this comp's still pretty strong.
I think my issue, though, is that when you look at it just in the direct 1v1 for laning phases, I would probably prefer Muzen Cobb over the Anhur. I think I would prefer Ares jungle over the Serqet right now. Chronos versus Isis. I mean, that's kind of a little bit more of a coin flip, but at the same time, I just feel like Space Station has such a heavy execution-based comp, and we saw some execution yesterday, but I'm just not sure, Finch.
They're going to need to all be on the same page if they want this to work. Space Station versus Splyce. Let's start game one.
Game one, Splyce and Space Station Gaming. First and foremost, thank you for joining us on this fantastic Friday. My name is Tom Battinger, otherwise known as F. on the internet. I'm joined here by Ryan Bailey. Aggro is his moniker. And of course, the one and only Doug on the observation. Aggro, Space Station Gaming, Splyce. What's your take?
I mean, Space Station had a rough start yesterday to the split. And look, we knew this was going to be a big challenge for them coming in to the second phase and really seeing how they would stack up against the best of the best. I mean, Splyce and Dignitas, two of the best teams in the world, no doubt about it. Space Station struggled yesterday. We've seen them have success against Splyce. I think that a lot of people gave them more of a chance against Splyce than Dignitas. We'll see if that holds true today.
Which is an interesting statement. You know, I think Dignitas is theoretically the better team, but Splyce absolutely started to warm up towards the end of the phase, and the mid-season invitational showed some nice things that was going on there as far as I'm concerned. Venenu has fit into Splyce a lot better than Cyno has fit into Space Station Gaming, if you allow me to make that statement. And as a whole, Scream getting called up, not he graduated, so now he can play in the Pro League, and here he is. I think Splyce are just as nasty as a team as Dignitas.
That's true, but I think that people were considering Splyce to be a closer matchup just because of their previous matchup after these roster changes, where Splyce ended up reverse sweeping Space Station, but that means that Space Station got off to a 2-0 start. So you know that they've got some potential, I think, in this matchup.
That's fair. That's certainly fair to say. Space Station Gaming, I think a lot of the conversation has been rather negative. BaRRaCCuDDa forced out of the beads early. But if we do have, a positive conversation, it is going to revolve around Cyno and Aquarius. Cyno, I think, has largely dropped the ball since being here, but Aquaman has stayed steady. He's, at some points, a rock star on a losing team, and at other points, the guy that can kind of bring it home. BaRRa has a similar kind of situation. Cyno needs to kind of work out with one of the side lanes, I think. I think that's really the key here, is for Cyno to work with either Aquarius or BaRRa. And if you want my 2 cents, it's Aqua.
Yes, but yesterday and even right now, we're seeing Cyno spend a lot more time in duo lane than we are with him in solo. And I think that this is a spot where you can find some success, is ganking duo a little bit earlier than a lot of other junglers are. I think that BaRRaCCuDDa has been the most steady member so far. Aqua's had his moments, sure, but I think BaRRa has been the most rock-solid member of Space Station for the majority of the season. So you may as well feed the slightly hotter hand.
Yeah, I agree there. And Aqua, BaRRa, like I said, either way, I just don't think the middle lane is really where you want to be focusing at the moment. And so with that in mind, I love to see the shift over there to the duo lane. I think that Cyno, might have a little bit more success there. But as JeffHindla gets shoved under the tower, he'll be able to jump away. Again, I think one of the large things that Spacestation has not had in their corner is their draft phase. And again, I think this draft phase goes to Splyce.
Anytime Aror gets Hercules, that's a bit spooky for sure. And Splyce gets Isis, who I still think is one of the best gods in the game right now. It's on CycloneSpin in the duo lane, long lane, whatever you want to call it these days. And so I think it could be slightly less effective. I do think Isis isn't one of those characters that super benefits from getting all this farm. She can still be relevant when down a little bit. But Cyclone is just your best player. And by your, I mean any 4 other players he's playing with. And so putting him on the most impactful pick, I think, makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, Splyce's draft, I think, is super sick. I mean, the scaries coming out in game 1, that's never a good sign if you're Space Station gaming. And it's just one of those frontline picks that it's a little bit of a joke strat, I think, for a lot of people. It's no joke how fast Ares clears these days because of the interaction with that 4% max health damage of Searing Flesh on minions that stacks with the Assassin's Blessing, 35% extra damage. And so you end up doing a ton to these jungle camps, and it's really, really impactful.
There's a blink from Aror, and Screammmmm going to chain up Andy. Forces out the beads. The flip back is good enough. And Venenu gets first blood off of the assist of the blinking support in the Ares jungle.
Does it make sense now why Aror never ever gets Hercules, because he's already gotten 2 sets of beads perfectly with blink driving strikes, and right there his patience on the Earthbreaker right after the fact to bring andinster back in and guarantee the first blood. You can't give it to him. It's really pretty simple to me. You either have to draft entirely to kill it, and maybe that's what Space Station's gone for here. They're trying to go Cyno's combo into andinster's damage or BaRRaCCuDDa's damage, and we hope that we can kill Hercules in that time period. We haven't seen it yet. Cyno's just now hit level 5, but he's gone for reinforced Greaves because of all the dots that Scream's going to provide. I don't know. It's spooky.
Well, here's Cyno on the right side of the map. SoloOrTroll has the ultimate on top of him. 2 versus 1, not able to heal, doesn't even have any teammates on the right side of the map. Here comes Aror, though. Blink is on cooldown. Sustain was good enough. Aquarius gets dashed on. The ultimate. Aror comes through and survives and helps SoloOrTroll. Big plays all day from the support. Ryan, you were just talking about this guy.
Well, it's a bad decision by Cyno to try and go in on SoloOrTroll there. SoloOrTroll is at one of his strongest points in the entire game with Glad Shield done.
But with the, and we'll hold the conversation as Aror finds another dash. That's going to pull at least 1. No, Andy has the ultimate. There's the transformation from JeffHindla. Venenu doesn't care, just waiting. There's Andy going down as well. 4 unanswered kills for Splyce right now. I mean, this is how you want to start it, baby. Just hot and heavy.
Do you think it's a coincidence that Aror is 2-0-2 on his best god and Splyce has 4 kills and it's less than 6 minutes in? Is there any correlation there, you think? Because I think there's a lot of correlation there.
Maybe just a little.
Yeah, I really... Look, it kind of stinks that you're forced into a Hercules ban against Splyce right now, but I really think you are. And now is the best time to have it happen because you have the extra ban. We're at 10 bans now, so you're welcome. Take advantage of it. I mean, the set ban, sure. It's not that scary to me. I really think that I'd much rather go up against anybody on Splyce playing set. Maybe BaRRaCCuDDa didn't want to face it in ADC is the big thing. I'd imagine that CycloneSpin's the guy you're worried about.
Look
at this,
more time. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, what is Andy supposed to do? You've already fallen too far behind. Andy is worthless now. He can't fight. And here's the thing. Anhur doesn't scale great into the late game. Andinster is now completely just nullified.
Nobody on Space Station Gaming has a tool here to really realistically steal this. BaRRa has to land a 3-1 combo, but you've got the Isis ultimate fully loaded. Pop, pop, and it's all Splyce, baby. BaRRa does have the rewind available and put him in safety. Not as far as I thought. Get a double stun, and here's Jeff. Aquarius wrapping around from the front side. There's going to be the first kill for Space Station Gaming. Cyno finds a target on Cyclone. Not good enough.
Very good.
Aquarius answers back by taking down Aror. A Gold Fury for 2 players, most notably the support and the mid laner who both had 2 kills and no deaths. So impactful kills as well, Ryan.
Yeah, very impactful. You get great rotation in by Aqua, and I love BaRRaCCuDDa's positioning. Like, guys, I'm going in. Y'all better get here, because I'm going in no matter what. And let's get some help going. And a good rotation in from Aqua is the real big difference maker there. Splyce thinks they have a 4-on-3 because andinster's dead. SoloOrTroll with this Glad Shield Rush, as I mentioned, is one of Arthur's strongest points, and he gets a lot of value if the fight comes to him. But Aqua does the smart thing. He takes the fight elsewhere. No boots for SoloOrTroll. No chance he matches that rotation.
Beautiful play, and you know, this is one of the great moments for Space Station Gaming, because Splyce makes the right call there. You absolutely go for the Gold Fury. You've got all the tools in the world. That is not a situation where Space Station Gaming are supposed to be involved. They're not supposed to show up, and they're not supposed to get 2 kills. But as you stated, BaRRa just forced his team to respond. And a shout out to the Chronos play as well. Whenever you're playing Chronos, you're thinking of that rewind timer all the time. Accelerate, but also that rewind timer. He goes and engages and uses the ultimate, knowing exactly that he's going to be out of the team fight, but still able to provide damage, because you see him throw out the stun as soon as he comes out of the rewind. Really well played by BaRRaCCuDDa. Got to give credit to that one. All that said, man, Splyce are still up 3,000 in the early game.
Yeah, it's still not a good spot for Space Station. Let's be very clear. I mean, even Aqua is down a level right now after his good rotation. BaRRaCCuDDa makes a nice play by Gold Fury, gets 2 assists, but CycloneSpin's not too worried about that.
Speed's gone. No, there's going to be a stun on the other side. BaRRa landing some basics, but Cyclone lands the bonus ones. The chase is on for BaRRa. Cyno's in the jungle. CycloneSpin has vision on him now. So Cyclone will sit under the tower. Go behind it. Love that pathing from Cyclone. Real small thing there. You're going to go all the way back over here between, just in case Cyno decides to dive the tier 2, or look for the back harpy invade. Cyclone's ready and waiting. Venenu has a slow. Cyclone with a taunt.
Nice.
Big ultimate from Nenu, and the pop from CycloneSpin. Again, the pathing led to that.
Very, very good ult as well by Venenu, I think, is the only thing to make sure that that ends up converting. But this is what, I mean, as I said, you don't really want to take the fight to Isis early, right? You kind of want her, you don't mind her getting all this farm at this point in the game. You're kind of okay with it. Cyno comes over to try and gank, but then gets a little bit greedy going for back harpies. You kind of just got to accept a loss in that instance. Now, Cyclone gets even more farm.
And these ultimates on cooldown. That's a huge deal. You got to think about that with respect to the Ares. And he has beats.
BaRRa's dead if Scream blinks here. I mean, he's got no beads, no ult.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of timing window, but Scream... You hate to see that. You just hate to
just
see
the
it.
straight.
The minion hit him, and he tried to blink.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he just stands up there with the metal power fist, like, yeah. But BaRRa's like, oof. What's up, dude?
Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. I mean, what do you do, man?
And that's, you know, there's no, you know, I think that's happened to kind of everybody that's played with a blink.
Not me.
Yeah, okay, you play middle lane. You
Never happened to me in my life.
I believe that. Because
Not even once.
Yeah?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Well, that time, Aurora's off the mark with a blink of his own.
At least he used it.
That's true. Blink 180 driving strike is the second coolest thing you can do with Blink.
Blink Fearless being #1.
Yes!
What about Blink Max Range Naja ult?
That's pretty nasty. That's pretty nasty. It's just not as cool looking.
Agree to disagree.
Splyce have control over the Fury, or excuse me, the Gold Fury vision, which is a big deal. That Gold Fury is going to spawn up in about 30 seconds. It's a Primal Fury, still one of the lackluster ones in my opinion, but this is kind of the moment for Primal Fury.
Yeah, I disagree. I think Primal Fury is really strong, and this is a perfect time for it, where you don't really need the gold to really swing the game in your favor. Splyce already kind of has that.
Right.
Oni waves at this point, I think,
Too
are the
early.
worst ones. Yeah, because you're not able to split the map effectively this early on. I think it's best right now.
Got to agree there. Nice pillar. Andinster essentially cuts off the team fight there as he drops the shifting sands. Small move, but a big impact. Aror looking for the flip, won't be able to find it. One more time, Andrew with the juke boots. Red buff invade, nope. Splyce uninterested. Because of good attention to detail from Space Station Gaming. all 4 of the members show up exactly at the respawn timer, and that's what deters Splyce from looking for that invade. So a good move there by SSG.
SSG is treading water for the moment, but I'm still a little bit concerned. I mean, Andy just now finished his Transcendence. Venenu's about to be done with his. He's cut the gap a little bit in XP, but that just happens naturally as the minions scale up and give you more golden experience, or more experience rather. So still a little bit concerned, I would say, for Space Station, especially considering how strong Splyce's front line is going to be as the game goes on.
Certainly something to be largely concerned about. We're only 13 minutes into this one, folks. Splyce started us off hot. Some nice blink plays coming out from the support, who has been carrying this game, in my opinion. And now they find themselves up over 4,000 gold at this early mark. So this is absolutely Splyce kind of controlling things, running things, taking whatever they want. And it's only 4,000 gold because we haven't seen them overextend. And that might be part of the reason why they've been so successful. Scream for the pull, and Cyno already in trouble.
Smart.
But there's a big stun coming out from BaRRa, and this should be a disengage from Splyce.
So they're going to try at least. JeffHindla wants to keep it going with his Draconic Corruption, but jumping in seems a bit too ambitious. Really nice play by Cyno, knowing he doesn't have beads, only level 11, started with the blink. Uses his CC immunity. Looks a little bit weird because he's going to the same spot he would have been, but he's not stunned into the guaranteed chain, and he's able to get out because of it.
What I also like there from Splyce is they... something I say a lot, more outside of SMITE than in it, is you have to learn the rules before you can break the rules, right? And when you disengage, it's best to Scooby-Doo split up so that the enemy has to choose a target, and if they catch up to you, they get one instead of multiple players. But Splyce right now being up 4,000 gold, they disengage as a clump, forcing, Jeff, like you said, you can't jump into that. So this is one of those situations where I love the fact that they actually stuck together as they retreated, because it deterred Space Station from making the play they wanted to make, which was the chase down.
Aror is just harassing Cyno right now as the rest of his team goes to the Primal Fury. There's the Isis ult, and this should be secured.
It's going to be gone. And a little bit afraid from BaRRa's location.
Close. That was a great play by Jeff, actually. He found a great angle and actually did thread the hammer through the Primal Fury. It's just the damage wasn't quite there to steal it, but that was a great play by Jeff.
Which is, you know, it's funny. Jeff kind of made a name for himself with Objective Secure back in the Hog days and had struggled to find an identity after. Here's a little throwback to his old school self. Kind of like it. Still, like I said, close on the counts, right? The Space Station trailing again.
Little surprised that we see the Breastplate of Valor for Aqua instead of Contagion, the new physical defense item that's the physical version of Pestilence. So good in lane against King Arthur, I think, because that little bit of anti-heal early on, you still get protection against him, but it makes his Glad Shield procs a lot worse. You definitely want anti-heal against Splyce's composition with the Hercules and with the Isis ultimate. We're not seeing any really prioritized yet, though Aqua did go for the Cursed Ankh as his kind of option for the moment. Must just really value the CDR on Amaterasu, which certainly makes sense.
I think that's the idea. This is the build for the team fight, not the lane. I agree with you. You get in the early Contagion, having that little bit kind of negates what's going on with the Glad Shield. But by going the Breastplate of Valor, that 20% CDR, you're spamming your heal. So instead of cutting down SOT's healing, Aquarius is trying to match SOT's healing. And then when it's team fight time, Aquarius is a little bit more equipped.
Man, Aror just tried to really make a play right there. Venenu trying to get the tower, but andinster forces him back with the ult.
Aquarius has made the rotation. Cyno will blink on in here. JeffHindla's here as well. Scream with a big ult. This hit have a large impact, but he does nothing but get some ultimates. Rotation from CycloneSpin is going to catch Aquarius out, and SOT on the back line picks up the support. Venenu puts down Aquarius. And Splyce, 5-player strong, surging forward. Big flip, big kick. See you later, Jeff. Tier 1 tower is going to fall as well. And it's 8-2, just like that.
Another bad target selection, though, by Space Station Gaming. They try and kill the full health Hercules, who's got tons of HP in this Gauntlet of Thieves and Shield of Regrowth build, and it baits them into a really bad engagement.
Shield of Regrowth, fantastic item when you're ahead. This is exactly when you should build it. This is why you don't just copy and cut the build path. Aror is 2, 1, and 5, and the same level as the enemy mid laner. Yeah, this is when you build your regrowth right now. Aurora, the boys certainly looking cute, feeling cute. 7,000 in the lead here, Ryan. And with the Fire Giant around their waists, I think this is the plan to really push this game into the next level.
Ooh, looks like Venenu is going to be going for a fail knot on the AMC mid. I like it. I think this item is really, really good for its stats alone.
Yeah.
If you get a couple passive procs, then you've done more than what you paid for it basically right away. I think that on a character like AMC, where that CDR is actually valuable as well, because he's spamming so many of his abilities, it can be very, very strong.
It's an item that a lot of the community, I think, it's hard to say when a good item is overvalued, because it is a great item. But this is one of the community's favorite items right now, for sure. I think it's obviously a little bit more attractive when you have multiple hunters on your team.
Yeah, I have heard. I agree. I have heard some people think that this item is just completely bonkers and busted, and you should build it every game. And I definitely do not think it's at that tier.
BaRRaCCuDDa by himself here, getting chained up by Scream. Does have the ultimate. It's going to put him right in the clutch of the Venenu.
Bye.
Yeah, surrounded by enemy squadron. Cyno does get a kill off screen onto Aror as the entire team is grouped up around where the Fire Giant once stood. But you can see BaRRaCCuDDa is the objective here for Splyce as they nearly reach 10,000 gold above SSG. This is just cleanup time. You're going to see Splyce pick up a couple of towers, pick up a couple of jungle camps, and if you get in the way, they'll go for you. BaRRaCCuDDa was just kind of there when the wrecking ball came through.
Tried to make a play, get some relics from Venenu, missed the initial stun.
Yeah.
That takes away all of your upside, basically, from that play right away. No pride win for Aurora is a little bit surprising to me, just because it's so nuts, period, and it's so nuts on Hercules. But he's so far ahead and really wants to leverage using this frenzy as often as possible. My argument,
Also
though, would be that they might end the game off the next frenzy.
Sure, I think it's when I see it, Aquarius is gonna get pulled. They're gonna kill him, right? Yeah, easy. Ultimate used by Anhur to avoid some of the CC as well. No, I mean it's Relic Dagger also recently changed, 40 seconds, which is a whole lot. At this point, Aurora's ultimate is Blink.
Yeah,
It's not Excavation. You know, it's again going back to the tier conversation. How often can you blink is how often you're going to get your setup. And so Aurora, fantastic job for him. Kind of sets his whole team up the entirety of the time. And just 20 minutes of play. Just 20 minutes on the clock. The Titan is going to fall down despite Spacestation's best efforts. Wow.
look, I'm not even that mad about that game if I'm Space Station. They had to have gone in saying, let's see if we can give Aror Hercules and draft the Serqet, draft this sort of comp to beat it. They got hard countered by the Ares pick, which feels bad for them for sure. But you kind of learned your lesson, you know? We can't not ban Hercules. Cool, let's ban Hercules and move to game 2. As long as they ban Hercules, I'm good.
And see, that's the beauty of the best of 5 in the regular season here. I think that's what you get. If this is a best of 3, I feel a lot different about that game number 1. But a couple more games here in the bank. Splyce, they take the first game pretty, let's just say heavy-handedly. One in the bank. We'll be right back after this.
INAP, powering the control room for the SMITE Pro League.
Welcome back to the SPL, a difficult game number 1 that we just watched there for Space Station. But if you are a Splyce fan, that's exactly what you want to see. Dominance from them. Help me break everything down. I do have Taco here with me. And you got any thoughts about Aror and maybe whether he's good at Hercules or anything like that? Or
You know, Aggro kind of reamed on this throughout the entire cast, and I almost don't want to add any more to it. But in all, you can't let Aror have Hercules, man. There was so much emphasis from Space Station placed into banning away the jungle god pool, gods that they felt like were probably too much burst or whatever the case. They did not want Scream to have it, but they just completely oversight the fact that they're letting Splyce get pieces that they would want to pick if it was any game.
I agree with you. I think they got an evergreen draft, and then Scream was able to recognize not only is Ares just good right now, but he's actually pretty good into this composition. It ended up being too many problems here for Space Station, and this could have been worse. Aror went for even more plays that didn't all connect. So this is the kind of monster game you can have when not everything's connecting. So definitely scary for Space Station. I don't imagine Aror will get this next time. And then they had this really good fight around the gold tree. They were able to force two. I mean, Splyce just played the early game well.
Splyce were just firing off on all cylinders. There's really no other way to put it. And the problem for Space Station is that when you're dealing with teams that are at the level that Splyce has been playing as of late, you can't really afford any of those early game slip-ups. And that's kind of where it starts off. Is Cyno, a couple of instances of him going a little bit too deep into Splyce's jungle, looking for counter farm opportunities, and instead winds up getting punished and picked off on numerous occasions. And I don't think that it was necessarily entirely to blame on Cyno or like some poor positioning choices early on for Space Station, so much as it was that their composition was just, I think, a little bit too high of execution and too reliant on making it to the late game.
It did seem as if they were relying on that, and I wasn't sure what their team fighting plan was. I imagine it's around Aqua on this Amaterasu and using that movement speed, getting JeffHindla in Draconic Corruption, seeing if they can burn down the front line. But like you said, they never got that chance. Aror doesn't allow you to get to the team fighting stage of the game, not the way that he plays this Hercules. So clearly some adjustment to be made there in that mentality. But I do want to give some credit to Splyce in the game. Some of the micro decisions that they made really working out for them. I think it was CycloneSpin that went for the ethereal staff, like as his first item. I love that. Yeah.
There's no taking away from Splyce's performance. Splyce did a fantastic job kind of abusing that early game aspect that they had drafted for. I love what Cyclone was able to accomplish over there with the Isis in the ADC role. I think from the get-go, neither of us is really all that convinced on that Isis actually being intended for the mid lane position. We've been seeing so many Hunter matchups there recently that I think that all Cyclone really needed to do was just prevent BaRRaCCuDDa from having a chance to farm safely. He was constantly pressuring into that Chronos, and that was also forcing Cyno to have to try and make the rotations to alleviate some of that pressure. But in turn, that just let Splyce know it was a heavy indicator that if Cyno's there, then we can just shoot Aror there, we can shoot Scream there. There was so much anti-Serqet in this Splyce draft that they just did not leave any options for Space Station to recover from.
It was difficult for them. We'll see if they make some adjustments here in the picks and bans for game number 2, Taco. Splyce will be in the first pick spot, so that means that SSG has selected to be the ones getting that final pick, and hopefully they can make some good work out of that counter pick that you're able to get in that 10th slot once you know the entirety of the other team's draft.
Well, maybe this is better for Space Station. To be completely real with you, Finch, I have not really been that impressed by Space Station anytime that they are in the driver's seat for first pick of the drafting stage. I think that it might just be better suited for Space Station if they're able to see some of the pieces that Splyce are opting for early on, because maybe it'll be more of an inkling as to which direction Splyce is headed, whether it's early game intention, mid game intention, or just straight up team fight presence, and Space Station having a little bit more time to kind of be responsive in the drafting phase.
Well, Isis first picked here by Splyce when that was allowed through. Note that Hercules still available at this point too, and Splyce don't elect to take it. I think they're saying they don't expect Space Station to be confident playing in those first 2 slots either here, Taco, so they feel like they can always grab it on that back swing, and clearly Space Station are not worried about that early game getting away from them. For what it's worth, there's a ton of room to draft on for them to be more early game than they were in game 4.
Without a doubt, and John Kui could be the start to a very strong response here. And the Anhur to boot. I'm assuming that that's going to be an Anhur for andinster in the mid lane. He has had a heavy preference towards Mufasa, and that's largely due to the fact that Impale and Desert Fury just bring so much in the early game as far as buff confirmation is concerned, and also steal potential.
You're exactly right. I mean, Anhur can give you a bit of control, some too, with the pillar, with the stun off the Impale, burst damage, confirm. He's got a ton of stuff to help out with the team. As Splyce grabs Set and Ares, we've seen Set be up and down. If he can get into the flow, get ahead, find some single targets to pick off, then Set feels really strong. But if not, then it can feel like you have someone on your team that doesn't provide much of anything.
But I love this from Splyce because it's such a toss-up. Spacestation still, I mean, I'm not even completely convinced that this set is going to be for Screammmmm in the jungle. I think that this is definitely a guy that SoloOrTroll could try to utilize over in the solo lane. He had
CycloneSpin could play it.
Exactly, and there's so much pressure already between Isis, Set, and Ares that Spacestation are, I think, a little bit more front-loaded this time around for a front line, however, because Osiris and even the Zhong, I think, a little bit of a tankier option for a carry, and maybe that's extra level of survivability is exactly what Spacestation needs.
King Arthur banned away from SoloOrTroll this time. He played it in game number 1 pretty well. There was that early gank where he got a little bit of backup there from Aror that kept him alive, and after that, he did a good job holding even in lane up against the Ama. Looks like Spacestation don't want to deal with it, so it's taken away. Meanwhile, Splyce banned the Awilus.
Kind of odd to see Splyce being the one stripping away that Awilish pick, but maybe just concerned that Cyno's going to try to default to something he feels comfortable with, but Spacestation did figure it out and won't be letting Aror have a freebie Herc pick, because even if it's not for Aror, Splyce could definitely still utilize that Hercules in solo or jungle, I'd say.
They definitely could. I like the idea of banning this one away here too. Because Splyce let it go this long, I assume it wasn't part of their initial game plan. It's a kind of pick that they'll take it and fit it in, but probably they weren't going for it.
Kumbhakarna, though, could be where Spacestation is headed next, or possibly the Athena. I like the taunt aspect, but do have some concerns as far as that Ares is concerned. I think Kumbhakarna will provide a much heavier peel possibility for Spacestation, and that could be crucial for preventing some of that searing flesh.
Well, that's why we see Kumbhakarna getting picked up now by JeffHindla. Not going to let that one slide into the waiting clutches of Splyce.
I kind of don't like this, though, because Splyce know that Spacestation want this Kumbhakarna pick, and with the Hou Yi being locked in, this Awilish ban is starting to make a lot more sense to me, Finch. I think that this is just Splyce going to play Kill the Tank, which is a strategy that we're all too familiar seeing them run.
So now it is much more looking like this Horus is going to be in the support role for them. They'll let Aror play that, and then there's some flex potential. I think that this looks like Set in the short lane for the solo, and then Ares in the jungle yet again for Scream, and then CycloneSpin piloting the Hou Yi. As Ratatoskr being hovered, a bit of a throwback. We don't see him much anymore.
Personally would prefer seeing that Ares in the jungle one more time in comparison to the Set. Set, while he can be strong, depending on how the usage of those clones pans out for you, I just think that the Kingslayer will provide much more boxing opportunities for SoloOrTroll in that solo lane, and maybe even able to help him bully out Aquarius, because we did see SoloOrTroll getting the better end of Aqua in that King Arthur Amaterasu matchup, which is, you know, kind of to be expected, but even when Cyno tried to help reduce some of that solo pressure when SoloOrTroll showed up with the blue buff, I mean, Splyce just had the rotation planned out already, and it just feels like they're constantly one step ahead of Spacestation. So I think I want to see Spacestation maybe try to be a little bit more proactive surrounding buff invades of their own.
Wow, it is going to be the Ratatoskr that gets locked in here, Taco. Well, I did ask for them to have a little bit more early presence, and Ratatoskr gives you that in spades. He's very good, even pre-level 5, but certainly once he has that ultimate online, he ascends to a whole new level of having the ability to gank, to rotate. If it's Splyce or the aggressors, he can get there and even those numbers up. I think this is good.
I like this draft infinitely more than what Spacestation were trying to run in Game 1, though, Finch, and I do think that they made some necessary adjustments to try and prevent Splyce from having as much control of the pacing from the get-go.
It does look like, though, we'll likely be seeing a Zhong Isis scenario over there in the long lane. Is that what we're expecting? Then Hou Yi on her in the middle lane. I don't know how much I love Hou Yi mid. He could feel better a little bit long lane, but I guess he could do either one.
It can really go either way right now. Cyclone can take the Isis back, or it could be for Venenu on the Isis instead. But I like the fact that Splyce has so much flexibility to offer. It just really proves that this is a team that feels very confident in each and every single one of their players, that they're willing to take such ambiguous picks. And probably mix and match them as they go.
That was our key focus coming into this one, right? Was the confidence for the team as a whole, and specifically zooming in on that solo lane. And if they give set over the SoloOrTroll up against Aqua, then clearly they got some confidence in them. We're about to find out, though. Game number 2, Splyce Space Station. It's Tom and Aggro.
Welcome back, Splyce and Space Station. We're going to see how they all wind up doing their thing. Just a reminder, it's me and Aggro on the call, Doug on the ones and twos. Make sure to follow us at SMITE Pro on Twitter for all the updates and informations and just fun stuff. You see the weird tweet that Space Station put out yesterday?
Which one?
That's a good statement. But SMITE Pro retweeted the JeffHindla like hug pillow.
Oh yes, yeah, that.
That.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Pookie at Space Station, by the way.
I'll retweet that last part. Gotta love you some Pookie.
Those guys at Space Station certainly, they know how to rock out. And so make sure to follow us there, because this is all about having a good time, man. And I think Space Station certainly know how to do it. Hoping to have a better time in game number 2, though. Game number 1 over relatively quickly in 20 minutes and 30 seconds. Not the ideal game for Space Station, but perhaps this one might be a little bit more in their favor. You heard on the desk Finch asking for some early action, and Andy and Cyno certainly have some options that can do that a little bit better than before.
Certainly, and you cannot let andinster fall as far behind as he did in game 1, and I'm very surprised that Splyce didn't take the Hercules in the top 3. Of course, got banned in the second phase. Very surprising to me, but at the same time, just as I said that it's not so bad for Space Station, you just kind of say, okay, we experimented, we lost, we can ban it and move on.
Yep.
Now it's Splyce's turn to experiment. We got a game in hand. We can chill. We've got nothing to really worry about. If we need to, we can go back to the Hercules pretty early on. Horus fits a very similar bill of great CC. It's not as much displacement, but it's still great crowd control.
And that's really the key. Is we were seeing the Blink driving strikes, and the driving strike, the displacement was big, but I think Aror just getting the stun out is going to be a big enough impact here. You can see Aror lurking in the shadows on the right side, not on anyone's vision. So would be able to make the wraparound stun, but only level 2 is the duo lane here for SSG, where Cyno has reached level 3. That might be a little bit of and so it seems to be.
I like the idea of this Ho Yi in the long lane again, up against the Zhong in particular, because Zhong is one of those characters that if he loses his beads and you have the opportunity to full combo him in that ult, he can make a lot of problems for you.
Scream's looking to make a lot of problems early. Cyno dashes away and BaRRaCCuDDa gets the stun. To blink forward, 1 chain, 2 chain, 3 chains. The flame's not going to be good enough.
Please no.
Oh. And that's why we can do a lot of analysis as to clearability of minions and how much damage comes out. The reason Ho Yi is in the long lane is because CycloneSpin will hit ricochets.
That, and I think it's got a pretty decent matchup against the Zhong. I mean, you can easily jump out of a lot of his stuff.
There's another blink. The crowd control out of Aror is insane. And first blood, again, goes to Splyce.
It was just a bad beads from BaRRaCCuDDa off of Scream's blink chains.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not, you're not getting a whole lot by beadsing that without a leap.
Movement speed is what you're looking for there, which, for what it's worth, did save him in that moment, but he died right after the fact.
Yeah, I mean,
Ares,
you don't get slowed. Ares speeds up during
Yeah,
the chain, so
that's
it's a completely pointless beads. It ends up getting him killed right after the fact, and honestly, Cyclone might be able to hit level 5 and kill him again before the beads are back up.
Certainly could be the case. Venenu playing on the Isis this time around. Venenu, large god pool. The Isis is an interesting pick. BaRRaCCuDDa again getting harassed here, halfway dead thanks to the chains. The Flame's gonna finish it off. Scream toasts him down. One for the jungler here. JeffHindla trying to wiggle away. Got a good control from Aror and Ven, and that'll be good enough. But 2 kills already for the defending world champs.
Man, there are some long tenured combos in Pro Smite. I'll go over them in a minute. Cyno wants to get aggressive in the mid lane for Venenu, who's got the beads, but now level 5, big shield though coming from Dispel Magic. That's enough to save him. In fact, Jeff is the one in trouble.
from Andy, but now he's out of mana. Better for him than Aror, who's out of HP. If Venenu's level 5, that is such a largely different fight, which is why Spacestation go for that engagement. Lovely attention to timing, and SSG are able to capitalize.
They're some of the longest tenured combos in Smite. Odin Zeus, Geba Willix, camping CycloneSpin's lane. It goes back a long time.
It really, back to when Cyclone was a solo laner.
So why not try it when he's basically solo laning over here on the left side of the map?
That's what I'm saying.
Seems good to me.
It's really funny that Cyclone has, you know, changed positions, but not really.
In a way, I suppose that's true. Yeah, he hasn't done a whole lot of changing. He's just still bopping you in a 1v1.
And for what it's worth, when CycloneSpin was playing solo lane, I'd say 2/3 of the time playing tanky, but a third of the time him and players like Zali would bring up these weird carries. Right side team fight over the blue buff. Here comes Scream with an ultimate to bring in Aquarius. But the ultimate will be used to both get away and secure the blue buff. Nice job by Cyno sticking to it. Here comes Andy with a flank. This can be big damage for SSG. But he largely hits Aror, and it's good enough. Jump forward, Scream answers back. He'll go down to Aquaman. And a much better team fight here from Splyce, or excuse me, from Spacestation Gaming. And again, I think it has to do with the picks.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you're doing with Anhur mid when it's going well.
Yeah.
And you're not 0-3 at this point in the game. I mean, that is a huge difference that you were able to rotate in, use that insane base damage that you have on Desert's Fury and make a good rotation. Good job by andinster. This is what this pick is supposed to do.
Make those rotations early and often. It was troublesome, you know, I almost thought that he was on the wrong target, targeting down the Aror, but everybody focused onto the support. And this is when you focus the support. Nice early tank boots, he went for the speed boots, which makes sense since Aror has been all over the map. Talaria boots, now only down to 15 power. We were seeing a lot of Talaria boots. Originally, it was just kind of the junglers that were like, all right, I rotate a lot. And then we saw supports kind of touch him. But then everybody kind of bought him. They took 5 power off of it. Where do you think they still belong?
I think that in situations like this where Aror couldn't care any less about his damage, he just cares about getting in position to CC you.
Right.
That's where Talaria are still well worth it. On very mana-hungry characters, you're not planning on building Transcendence or Hydras as your big MP5 boost. I think Talaria is still relevant. Other than that, a lot of times I'm trying to force Ninja Tabi these days because Ninja Tabi's buff, getting some extra attack speed, really, really helps make it relevant.
Yes. The 6 is the Zhong, level 7, 5, and 8. The Splyce players. This here, Scream wiggles, blinks away, and gets on out of there. And he's dealing with Cyclone as Roar's trying to help. Just kind of watches. He doesn't have any tools there to help out the carry. So we're tied at 4, and we're tied at 22,000. Splyce seemed to be making the first plays, but Spacestation Gaming, what's different here is that they're answering back.
And Andy's starting to get into a rhythm, and that might be the most important thing for all of Spacestation. When andinster's playing in rhythm, feeling himself, has that confidence, this looks like a whole different squad, and I think that this is going to be a much better game for Spacestation just based off andinster's start in a vacuum. I mean, sure, instead of 0-3, he's 3-0, but just that confidence booster, I think, is really big for him.
Andy's always been that type of guy, man. We've been watching him forever, and people used to throw the term andinster around when he was having issues there. But for me, you know, independent of online or LAN, it's been about his rhythm. Out of the land here, and Scream's dead. Nice play by Spacestation, kind of picking players off there. And again, you know, that's started by Andy. Like you said, he's in the groove. It can be scary.
But you have to be able to convert off of it. I think yesterday, you look at game 1 they had up against Dignitas, it's a much longer game. andinster, I thought, played very well in that game on the AMC, finding himself plenty of player damage. It's really hard to do that safely. Had a couple spills that maybe he shouldn't have, but overall, I think he played well. Spacestation wasn't able to convert off of that. I think that when he's in the groove like this, you've got to win these games.
definitely have to be looking for the Gold Fury early, I think. If Venenu goes down, that's where Space Station's brain has to be 100%. You've got some of the tools, but more than that, you have the tools to really fight in the mid-game. That's what you gotta be looking for. Scream stunned down again. Then pops down the heel. A little bit of a push. SoloOrTroll just shows up out of nowhere. And that's a big play. Patient from the short side. Jeff in trouble now. And he's going to be flanked by Aror. There's the ultimate, but it doesn't matter. SOT gets the double kill. Now Scream chaining up Aquarius. Jeff will fall to the wayside. Last hit goes to Venenu. That's lucky number 7. And that is the difference. An unanswered play by Splyce. And now Splyce are the one that are going to be looking for the gold.
That one hurts Space Station, and it seems like that's a great fight for Space Station, right? They've already abused Scream, he's a little bit behind, Cyno's 2 levels up. But it's because that rotation from SoloOrTroll that really opens up.
Beautiful leash there. Splyce walks away, and I agree. The solo set has been, I think this is where I'm landing.
And that rotation probably caught Space Station so off guard because Aqua's proxying on that wave. And so they think, okay, Solo's going to have a whole wave to deal with. We're not going to have to worry about him. He's going to stay in lane and clear that. And it's a very unintuitive play to leave a whole wave behind in the solo lane to rotate to that fight. But SoloOrTroll gives it up and ends up paying off way more because he's able to get multiple kills and an assist. But I don't know how many solo laners just give that wave up right away. I don't know if someone from Splyce said, hey, Solo, we need you here now, and he listened and came over, or if that was just his own instincts kicking in and realizing that he was needed. But either way, to have your brand new player beyond that level with you already is a good sign.
Because that's the Splyce kind of brand of SMITE, right? When we look at Splyce, Scream rotates off of speed buff cooldown. That's why he gets these weird ganks, right? Like those odd timings are what Splyce kind of is about. The reason you get bopped by Aror is because he's not supposed to be there at that moment. So SoloOrTroll, like you said, whether it's the team telling him to or he has his own mentality, either way, he's buying into the he's buying into the same mentality as the team. He's attributing to the thesis, and that's the important part when you join a squad like this. Sometimes you're like Cyno, and it's your job to instill your play onto the lower-end team, but when you're joining a squad like Splyce, you have to buy in. And that's absolutely what SoloOrTroll did. That play made me very excited to see kind of SOT join this team.
Completely agree with you. I think he's gonna fit in very well. He proved that he's ready for the next step. That he's ascended the minor league at MSI.
That raw talent is absolutely there as well. Very excited to kind of see him play, and talking to him on Twitch chat and everything. He's also just kind of like ready to buy in. He talked about, like, you know, maturing, moving on from different places, and he's here, man. He's ready to go. Talking about the god itself. Set's been struggling to find a home. SoloOrTroll kind of found a home here with Splyce. Set, on the other hand, we're gonna look at Cyno here. It's the ultimate. We've seen him in the jungle. Primarily, that's where he started. Carry was really impressive, but I think this solo lane might be his traditional home here.
Potentially. Laning is what he's really good at.
Yep.
Whether it's solo, mid, or ADC, I think that's fine.
No chance. Just gonna show up and watch Auror's here on the backside, but that's gotta be the most hopeless case on the objective. Second only to when you see Opwash corpses, just 5 of them.
That's a lot of damage. That's true. But at least there's some deploy time on the corpse explosion. You know, you're hoping that they mess up the timing. Ho Yi ult raining down sides and already fully charged Ice Assault. Even with Hog, just not getting that one.
What are you doing there? Yeah, man. As a support, you waddle over in Kumbha. You see the Ice Assault down, you go, all right, boys. You give him a wave. Cyno's here, so the slap fight's gonna get real. Looks over the wall. There's damage coming out. Big pop as CycloneSpin takes care of Aquarius. Nice jump there. Aror shows up with an ult of his own. Pulls good onto Cyno. And a double kill for the rotating Hunter. 9 in total for Splyce. And again, they find themselves taking a little bit of a lead here in the early parts of the mid game.
So we were saying, andinster's playing really well. Let's see if they can convert. Let's play around this Anhur. How many fights have Splyce taken anywhere near the mid lane since that point?
I was just gonna say that. Andy, you're a star. We're never gonna hang out again.
Just no one near him. Let's take fights and do them. Now SoloOrTroll has a power spike and Blackthorn here. Let's take a fight in solo lane. Aqua not getting the ult off there is really, really bad because not only would it have potentially saved him or bought him some time, but you buy Pride Wind to use it with your ult and was just a little bit too patient with it. Also, Cyno blinking in, missing the stun on a SoloOrTroll. Maybe they're able to kill him before the rest of the squad gets there. If that happens, still seems a bit unlikely to me.
Contagion being purchased here by Scream. Doug, if we could just take a second look at this item. Is this an aura?
It is.
It is an aura like Pestilence.
Yep, sure is. So it's more power. He went with the same Jade Emperor's Crown first item last game with the Talaria. I really like it. Well, Travelers, if you're magical. You got 2 auras already, plenty of movement speed. Maybe Pen Boots is better than Travelers, but that extra bit of movement speed for Ares does really end up impacting you. And so I really like the direction that Scream has taken this build.
We talked about the Talaria boots a moment ago, and I still like junglers with it. It lowers some of your thresholds as far as clearing the camps, etc. Especially going all the way down to 15. And there are some junglers where I think you still need that extra power, so stick to the warriors. But man, I said it before about old Talaria. And I still say it about this Talaria, is that if I do less damage but make it to more fights as a jungler, I'm doing more of my job, especially as an Ares. Don't get me wrong, your damage is big, but it's a lot of base damage, and mid to late game.
And percent health damage on the 3.
Bang. Shout out to Thanatos, that's why you build the cooldown reduction there. And also, with respect to Ares mid to late game, are you ulting?
Not that often. Not unless you know you're going to live and they don't have beads. That's pretty much it.
You just got to get there. That's the key. So I like the Talaria one more time. Or excuse me, the old Travelers. 30 extra power for each aura. 60 power for free, pretty much. Can't complain about that.
It's not bad. I know that much for sure. 60 power for free seems pretty good.
Could go Voidstone next. He went E-Staff in this slot last game. We saw CycloneSpin actually rush E-Staff in the last one as well.
It's nice.
Recently buffed, really good. Its HP gives him some survivability, more power, and he's stealing your HP, so he gets even tankier as he initiates. I think it's very strong.
Big fan of what's going on there. Splyce. A little bit ahead here. You know, the strings getting excited, Splyce getting excited, but it's absolutely still anybody's game. Spacestation have done a much better job in game number 2. I won't just say holding on. I think maintaining parity. They've been even here. One mistake has resulted in 1 Gold Fury's worth of differential. Splyce got the Gold Fury and those 2 kills, but that's all this lead is, and that's a good sign.
Yes.
That Gold Fury went down minutes and minutes ago. The fact that Splyce hasn't gotten anything after is a big deal.
Game 1 was over 2.5 minutes from now.
Yeah, like already.
So that's certainly an improvement for Space Station Gaming. We'll see if they can actually make it worth something.
Fury's about to respawn. It will be that Primal Fury. This is that moment where I said, this is where Primal Fury actually kind of flexes. So the others aren't an option. Late game, I don't want to. Mid lane, Andy will jump away. Relic's available for pretty much everyone. This is going to be a hot fight here on the left side of the map. Where his makes the rotation. CycloneSpin jumps over the ultimate from Cyno. It's going to be an ultimate forcing on Cyno's beam. Scream here with the basics. He's got to wait for the cooldowns, but CycloneSpin is taking care of everyone else. 2 kills for the carry. Scream surrounded, but Roar comes through to help. Just going to go down after the yawn. And that's 3 kills for nothing. A dozen for Splyce. And the Gold Fury, the Primal Fury, right there waiting.
I think it's bad fight selection again by Space Station. Aqua gets caught out, uses his Ankh in a spot where it will not really matter. It helped him against the lifesteal coming from CycloneSpin. That's it. And then Cyno dunks down. Cyclone, good reaction time, is able to get out of it. But then Cyno's dash after him kills him. I mean, he's dead as soon as that happens. I understand you got to force his relics, but you just kind of have to accept that you've thrown that fight from that position almost. Just a bad engagement by Spacestation, and we see right there the old counterpick selection of Isis versus Zhong. As soon as BaRRaCCuDDa's ultimate comes out, Venenu drops the ult, full charges it, pops Barra, heals Cyclone to basically full.
Fire Giant halfway down. Members of Spacestation are here, and Cyno's going up for the ultimate one more time. There's the Isis pop. Splyce gets the Fire Giant, and Spacestation want to fight. Aquarius goes down. Andy's low, but blocks out SOT with a nice pillar. CycloneSpin drops the Suns, and andinster will eat it. Nice try from Venenu, but SoloOrTroll over the wall. Stunned out for the moment. Here's the rest of the squad waiting for JeffHindla. Everybody's sitting here. 2 for SoloOrTroll again. Welcome to the Pro League. 4-0-7 for the solo lane set. Tier 1 in the pocket. Tier 2 behind them. The Phoenix in front. 20 seconds each. I don't know. I'm looking at body language.
No
I think I
frenzy.
know.
They're going for it.
They're
You may
certainly
as
going to
well
try.
at this point.
They're certainly going to try. They're pushing. A little bit of defense from Spacestation will be up in 5 seconds. Cyno's down. Titans half HP. 3 minutes ago, this was anybody's game. Now, this looks like this is Splyce's, but Spacestation are playing good D still. 10%, 5%, chained up. Aquarius is gonna go down. Another one for CycloneSpin. And the
that's
Titan will be popped. 20-50, and that's game.
Man, I said it was going better, right? I mean, 2.5 minutes ago, we would have, it wasn't gonna end in 20 minutes this time, right?
Nope.
I just don't love whoever's making these calls to fight. I think they've been in the wrong spots for Spacestation gaming. I think that Fire Giant defense is a pipe dream at best.
Yeah.
I mean, you've just lost the fight. You don't want to give them fire. But let's kind of theory craft here. Sure, hindsight's 20/20, but it really shouldn't have been that much hindsight. Are we really going to secure this over Isisol? If we do, are we winning the fight? No. You aren't winning that fight because you've already committed too much. It's a bad retreat. It's kind of half in, half out. Spacestation's got a better chance of defending their tier 2s after the Fire Giant. You're not that far down. That's a better opportunity to take that fight. The draft was a little bit better. We need more from Cyno. We need the ability to pick better fights more than anything else. I think that's what's really hampering Spacestation more than anything in my mind.
I 100% agree. When you brought it up at first, looking at the left side, I was like, look, Aquarius got caught out. What else do you do? I understand why you went for that. I don't understand the Fire Giant fight. Real rough for Spacestation. Down 2 to Splyce. We'll see what happens after this.
The SMITE Pro League is brought to you by Titan Forge Games, the developers of SMITE.
Well, that game was close right up until it wasn't. Things got out of control for Space Station there pretty quickly. Even Hindu Man was struggling with it. But you all do not have to struggle. If you all want to be a part of this new Battle Pass, go ahead and pick it up right now. Power Up Hera is waiting for you in the Sweet Victory Battle Pass. Unlock skins for her, Nemesis, Soul, and Xbalanque. Sounds like a pretty good deal to me. But I am joined here by Taco to go ahead and try and break down that last set. Taco, I mean, that was close for a while. Space Station were hanging in there, and then just a series of bad decisions in terms of taking fights, and they lose the game just like that.
I think that it was Space Station feeling a little bit too forced. They kept trying to force engagements without andinster being there when andinster was, without a doubt, the only one who was really having any early game success. It was kind of surprising to see Space Station so willing to try and branch away from their mid laner, especially when you factor in that poor BaRRaCCuDDa. I mean, talk about the camp of a lifetime.
Rough.
In that duo lane, trying to get that Zhong Isis 1v1 matchup, but it just never left alone for a second. Non-stop rotations from Screammmmm and Aror really just set up CycloneSpin so well to be able to maintain a steady lead. BaRRa felt like a non-factor that game, Finch. And that's just no other way to put it. He was not allowed to play this game.
No, they just came and sat on him, and I know it hurt Aror this time. I'm nearly as good of a game stat-wise as it did in game 1, but that's because they traded it out. SoloOrTroll had a lead over in the solo lane, and then CycloneSpin had a big lead in the dual lane as well. Everyone else on the map was just about even until Cyno started forcing weird fights, and that's the word you used earlier, but it feels like frustration. It feels like Splyce or Space Station don't know where to go to make opportunities, so they just go anywhere. They just force them.
Well, I think that is actually a really good point you're bringing up, and I don't want to clarify it as a Space Station not knowing where to go. I think that Cyno just straight up doesn't know which direction he should start trying to try and bring these matches back in. But Ratatoskr, for all of his early game prowess, is
that's the dash there.
We did not see a single gank really from Cyno in that early game at all. It was entirely ran by Screammmmm. And for an Ares to out-rotate a Ratatoskr so consistently, I'm not sure if it's a team's communications issue that's starting to come into effect yet again, or if Cyno just straight up isn't communicating with the rest of Space Station, and they're all just trying to flounder after the fact, trying to recover the fight that he would start. But it just felt all over the place, very scatterbrained from Space Station.
It certainly did, and that's something that can happen when you're up against a really good team like Splyce that plays the map very well. I say it all the time about Space Station. They always look like a team that's really good at just playing normal Smite better than you. If everyone just farms and keeps to themselves and does all the things like we normally do, Space Station will probably win every one of those games. But if a team comes in and forces them to make a ton of tough decisions quickly or to adapt to their playstyle, it always feels like Space Station flounders in that area.
Even in that last player cam instance, I mean, that did not look like a fun conversation that Cyno was having with the rest of his team. And as far as understanding where to look, I think that it's clear right now, Finch. Ares cannot make it through. I would really like to see Space Station make that adjustment to where they ban away the Ares, but considering that they've been taking priority choices towards Thor and Erlong, I don't think that they can really afford to give either of those options to Splyce either. It just feels like Space Station is going to inevitably outdraft it again.
We'll see what adjustments they do look for, as so far things are fairly much like they were in game number 2. Actually, the exact same. Geb, Erlong, Arachne into Thor, Morgan, and then I suppose Chronos, if they want to keep up with exactly what we saw last time. That could also be their chance to try and make some differences. Do they want to go ahead and ban the Ares here and force Screammmmm to play something different? That's an option. Maybe just take the Herc here now and not allow that one to go to Aror, or they'll stick with the Chronos ban. That's exactly what they did in game number 2. And Splyce, just like in game number 2, first pick the Isis.
Maybe a response pick from Space Station could be to take the Hercules Ares now, so Splyce won't have it as options, and then you get a solidified front line. Hercules and Ares could both be flex picked pretty easily. The problem, though, for Space Station is that Ares, I don't see Cyno playing Ares jungle, or at least not to the same degree that you would expect from Screammmmm. So that could be part of the reason why Space Station are still considering this Zhong first pick. And it's possible that this Zhong might not even be intended for BaRRaCCuDDa.
And we saw last game that it got sat on, so maybe they want to go with a pick that can do a little bit better if it's by itself over there. As Anhur comes in, so far, we're basically just running it back from that second game, so why not go right into the set then? And I suppose
Ares.
Yeah, which is coming next. Yep, let's just keep it going. The onus, it feels like, is on Space Station to do something different here, right? If I'm Splyce,
I feel like I'm in
okay
Crazy
running it
Town
back.
right now.
Well, it's
Am I in
Osiris.
Crazy Town? Like, the thing about a salty run back is that there needs to be some level of success in the game that you lost in order for a salty run back to be a rational option. But none of this makes sense right now for Space Station. I guess I can't really fault Zhong, Anhur, Osiris. They're a decent 3-man stack so far, but if they're planning on rounding things out again with the Kumbhakarna and Ratatoskr Finch, I don't know. I might just walk away from this one.
Well, I mean, I'm right there with you. That's if they keep everything the same. Now, for what it's worth, the early game was looking good for Space Station. They weren't ahead by any means, but they were close with a chance to make it late, and maybe the difference is you just need a better jungler than the Ratatoskr, and that's the idea from them. And Splyce are saying you're not getting the run back. They ban away the Ratatoskr themselves.
Not even sure if that might be doing Space Station a favor, in all honesty, to prevent them from a full repeat of that Game 2 composition. But with the Ratatoskr having been taken off the board, Humbats is another really strong ban choice here for Splyce, going to prevent Space Station from having any sort of AoE teamfight presence, or at least not the Wombo combo that you would typically anticipate between the Zhong and the Humbats.
Humbats is a really strong ban. That's just a lot of control that this team really, really needs right now, and they're going to have to make up with essentially just one pick. So taking that away from them was pretty strong. Kumbhakarna does come back through again, but we already know two of these last picks have to be different. Splyce can go Horus again here if they'd like to, but they'll need someone different in the long lane for CycloneSpin, as the Hou-Yi has been banned out.
Could be a Medusa in the long lane for Cyclone, or a Chernobog. I think that Chernobog has some global presence as well. Splyce has been handling the team fight so dominantly against Space Station that a Chernobog would only further that option for the team.
Gives him a chance to have some global impact. Even if he doesn't rotate all the way over, still is getting those slows out and helping with the team. So Chernobog could certainly be strong. It is one that CycloneSpin likes to play. But I've said it before, CycloneSpin has a bit of a unique god pool in the hunter role. Right now in the long lane, a lot of the good stuff is kind of dictated, but he can play whatever he wants, including on a Muzen Cobb if he wants to take that there. But with the Isis already on, it's equally likely, I think, that they switch those two, so they can each go to either one.
Not very many changes for Splyce, largely because of the fact that Space Station let them have probably everything that they wanted, minus the Hou-Yi, but a Pele could be an interesting flavor swap for Space Station. My concern here on this one, though, Finch, is in Game 2, Cyno had the early game God presence with the Ratatoskr.
He did.
He did nothing with it. So Pele kind of same hand-in-hand situation here where she's got a ton of early game presence, but you need to be making successful ganks for that to really be felt.
I kind of like this, though, because my critique of Cyno in Game 2 was that he was too all-in a situation where he was definitely going to die as a result. If he's going to play the same way in Game 3, Pele's just better at that than Ratatoskr. She'll lifesteal up, she'll be able to sustain, she can confirm the kills better. If Cyno plays the same way he did in Game 2, and except that he's on Pele, likely it'll look better.
I guess another concern that I have in that case, though, is the fact that Splyce, I mean, they kind of want you to come within melee range. They're the ones with the Circle of Protection. They're the ones with the Kingslayer. And even Ares on that no escape is going to be a pretty critical factor here, because you have to keep in mind, whoever gets the Zhong, whether it's BaRRa or andinster in that mid lane, there's no CC immunity on that ultimate still. And the same thing for Pele. After the volcanic eruption, there's still a chance that she could get caught out by that no escape.
Now this time, though, the hunter that she'll be diving won't have the dive bomb. The Hou-Yi ban is worth mentioning in that regard. It let him maybe get up over walls and reposition. The Muzen Cobb gonna have to do that, relying mostly on movement speed. Maybe then the Pele has a better chance to lock down CycloneSpin, whether he's on Isis or the AMC, if he can't just jump and leave.
Well, one thing's for sure, Finch. I'm definitely curious to see how well this switch-up really pans out for Space Station, but I think my main problem is that for games 1 and 2, when you just look at the 5v5 composition, the teamfight has been strongly favored towards Splyce, and what have we been seeing time and time again? Splyce completely dominating in the teamfighting aspect.
And it is also going to be tough for them if Scream gets to play Ares every game and it works for him, so let's see if they can make the adjustment. Splyce Space Station starts now.
It's a big adjustment. It's a big hole. Man. SoloOrTroll, Scream, Venenu, Aror, CycloneSpin. They've been successful all day, and they got the same picks, man. It's scary, because if you're on Space Station's side, the question you are asking yourself, both if you're on the team, supporting the team, etc., is how will this one be different I mean, is Cyno on Pele really going to make the difference maker?
Could.
And
Theoretically could.
I need to reiterate that. I'm very sorry. I don't mean like, "Man, look at this Cyno guy just on Pele," but I'm saying, is one character adjustment enough?
Well, like I said, last game I think it was almost entirely fight selection. And really, the picks hurt you. The one that hurts me the most, I think, if I'm on Space Station, is letting Cyclone get back to the Isis, and I'm still playing Zhong.
Yeah.
And how do I ult and win? Like that's the hard part.
Sure.
Overall, I don't hate it as much as I think a lot of people will.
I agree, and Venenu will use his beads early on, and I kind of I hoodwinked it. But that's where I'm at as well, noticing that it all went Pete Tong at 17 minutes. We get that. But before that, it was a nice, even match. 2,000 gold separating it. That was absolutely... Aquarius got stuck out and some bad decision-making, and then we took one fight that went wrong, and the game literally ended. They literally walked it up mid after that. That's a situation where I'm saying, run it back and do it better, which is... Sometimes you just need basic command like that.
Yo, Scream, what's up?
Nah, Vince here.
Must have gotten impaled towards the tower by Andy. No, impale was up. Yeah, I don't know why he was on the tower line. Got a little lucky, didn't end up taking a tower shot from that position. Aror will not be so lucky. A little bit too far forward for him, but it looks like he got red buff, so really not that bad, I'd say, for Splyce.
Again, though, giving First Blood to Space Station the first time this set. We like to see that. It's certainly a nice turnaround. Andinster, we mentioned a rhythm player. That's the type of thing that you want to see. You want your shooting guard to hit the first bucket, as unimpactful as it may be to the larger picture. Andinster being a part of that fight, very important stun, important. Certainly could bode better. Scream, rooted, booted, dashed on. Here comes help from Aror, and it will be good enough.
Much better. I feel like game 2, Space Station might chase that kill, but
yes.
Look, for getting beat twice in a row at 20 minutes, I'm feeling a little bit better about Space Station.
Well,
maybe
Cyclone. Whoa. There he is. Really? That...
Close. Very close.
He hit the more difficult shot, which is just sure. Aror dashed on. And JeffHindla's going to be able to get out. Even if he did die, he had the sleepy time. Is that the title of the passive?
I think it is.
Sleepy time?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm usually pretty good with ability names. Passive names are preposterous, and I refuse to learn them.
Really?
Yeah, I refuse. Here, give me it. I'll give you an example. I actually know a couple in this game. What would you say Anhur's passive is called?
Shifting Sands is the pillar. It is Defiance?
Enfeeble.
There it is.
Yeah. What is that?
Well, Enfeeble, it makes sense.
I know what the
You're lowering the protections.
Right, but does it need to have that name?
Yeah,
it's so complicated.
Enfeeble's
what would you say Ares' passive is called?
Ares' passive.
It gives you power.
Uh-huh.
Don't look it up. Put your phone away.
I don't know what you're
Tom,
talking
you're
about.
on your phone.
Ares' passive is called Power Aura.
I believe it's Divine Presence.
That makes sense. As a god, you are... It doesn't really make sense.
I mean, look. I'm coming up with names for all this stuff.
Ask me Isis.
What's Isis?
Funeral rites.
That's right. You got that one.
Ask me...
What's AMC's passive?
AMC.
I just did.
Bees.
What is an interrupting cow joke? That was the same delivery system.
Bees. JeffHindla surrounded. Nice pillar by Andy to lock his own support in. Jeff still gets out. That was a rough one, Andy. That was a rough one.
Nah, Jeff's fine, and it made it so the fight got dissected. Overall, it was good.
Yep. Now, Jeff might have been outside of the door that got closed.
That's fine.
But he does wiggle his way back in. Nice job.
Jeff can Kool-Aid man his way through the door.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not worried about him. He's a strong man.
What's Zhong's passive called?
Demon Bag would be my guess.
Bag o' Ghosts.
That's wrong.
Prove it.
Okay.
Don't. Don't.
No, I think I will. Go ahead, kid. Go with whatever you're doing.
So as we're...
It's Demon Bag, by the way. I was right.
Oh, man. Well, we'll see what happens there. A nice even match here. Scream has been in trouble a little bit. One more time, baby!
Buddy, no. Look, the scaries is something to fear, but maybe all you have to fear is fear itself. You know what I mean?
One of my favorite things about having players in the studio playing live is the in-between matches. Sometimes the players are, shuffle off to the bathroom or grab a drink real quick, and a lot of the time, you kind of try and stay out of their hair, competitive integrity and all that. But after a good win, you read the faces, you can kind of test the waters. Scream's walking back to the studio, and me and Agro just stick our head out of the booth and go, "Yo, Scream," and lift our hand up like the Ares ult, missing everybody. He goes, "Hey, man. That's what I bring."
Something he brings is right.
Good to see him having fun. What a good call-up, too. It was very cool to have Scream back in the Pro League. Something was missing for those couple of months, I think, for sure. Scream is...
Unfettered genius.
Yes. Okay. Are we...
I was guessing what you meant.
I was going to say an interesting player, because I think that his god pool is eclectic, and he's willing to be the guy that shows you that Ares jungle is not just good, but standard. You know what I mean? Like, this is absolutely Scream's wheelhouse.
Yeah. There's a lot of sayings that kind of, if it's free, it's for me, is a long time Magic saying. If it's weird, it's for Scream.
Yeah.
It's kind of the, if no one else is playing it at all and thinks it's bad, give it to Scream. Now, I don't think Ares fits that bill necessarily, because I do think that other junglers have kind of been keying in on this, but it's no surprise that Scream has gone 2-0 with it. Game 1, I thought he was incredibly impactful on it and was a big reason for their victory. Game 2, maybe a little bit less so, but not through any fault of his own. The rest of the boys were just kind of popping off. I would expect that he's able to make some plays happen here in Game 3.
There's a lot of junglers, like you said, that have noted it. I think the large sentiment is, yeah, Ares jungle works. And Scream's the one that goes, "Ares jungle, please." World stage, everything on the line. Give me Bastet, please.
Well, Scream's been wanting to play, like, Terra jungle forever. And this is just as close as he's getting right now, I suppose.
Right side team fight. Scream lands 2 chains on Jeff, misses the 3rd. Aror under the tower, safe and sound. SoloOrTroll, it's early. A couple of players are going to get grabbed up. 1 ultimate, 2 ultimates forced out. And there's damage coming out from the mid lane on her. Aquarius finishes off Scream. Now the fight after the fact as Venenu makes the rotation. JeffHindla, he might even wake up here. Top side is good for Spacestation. But Venenu does find the last hit. I think Aror had to contribute. And that's what got the kill there, importantly enough.
Solo wants to keep it going. Skewer's there, but Andy has the jump available. Another Skewer coming up in just a second, but Andy's out of range.
Aquarius providing the defense. Sends the guys forward. Andy will be back to base the good way. There's a dash. The Roar tries to set up a kill on the top side. Grabs it. Easy peasy. Venenu's getting walked down by Aquarius. But Venenu for Cyno is a trade that was intentionally made by Splyce for sure. I don't think they wanted Aquarius to get the double kill. A nice play from the Osiris, man. 3-0-0. And those are the plays. I've been saying it since the beginning of this season. That's what Spacestation needs. They need Aquarius to be their standout player.
Yeah, that's huge. And that's the ideal Osiris scenario. Everyone's just kind of coming to you. You've got no boots with a Glad Shield, and let's get to brawling, baby.
Thanks,
because
bud.
I've got lower cooldowns than you do. I've got great damage mitigation, and Aqua certainly makes it work.
Are we done? Is it Glad Shield over Zerker Shield always for Osiris?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is, just because every top-tier Osiris is going Glad Shield these days.
Right.
I think the 10% CDR really is impactful. I wonder, with attack speed boots being buffed, though, if Berserker's attack speed boots is better.
Cyno looking at Zerker on Venenu. Big damage from Andy. Last hit goes to Cyno, but if kills are designated by amount of damage dealt, I think that's all Andy's. Great accuracy on the ultimate there from the Anhur player for sure.
Andy continues to look a little bit more comfortable in games 2 and 3, and I kind of
yeah.
got cut off when I was saying it, because as soon as I said it, Splyce won the game basically last time.
Yeah.
But Spacestation's Game 2 performance did encourage me. It looked like they learned, is the big thing. You know, it looked like they understood what had happened for the most part. They make a fatal error or two, and then the game is over. But now they already took care of the problem in Game 1. Maybe they can take care of the problem here that happened to them in Game 2 and learn that and kind of stack it with their answer in Game 1. And maybe they can have a more competitive Game 3.
And I can't stress how much better this is than yesterday. If you watched our inaugural Phase 2 game, it was Space Station versus Dignitas, and they had a great 40-minute back-and-forth game for number 1. Then number 2 and number 3 were not as mentionable. For game number 1 to go well and games number 2 and 3, that's less of a good sign for me than game number 2 and 3 being better. Because game number 1 means, all right, they were unprepared, your opponent, and they learned, and then you lost. What we're seeing here today is the opposite. And Space Station Gaming came in, tested the waters with the Hercules and everything, and now they're improving, like you said. I'd much rather see a team, even if it's you give me 2 3-0s, I'd much rather see the team do better on the back end of that than the front end of that. And it's a long, we got 13 weeks to go. So there is much room for Space Station to kind of bring this together.
They don't have that much time though, Tom, because it's not like it used to be where
That's fair.
The records reset in between phases. They're holding their records coming from Phase 1.
Half HP in the gold Fury. One more time, Isis will drop the ultimate. Barra, Jeff, Andy watching. Pop's good enough. Now the fight. This is what we tune in for. Scream, gonna pull none. Get hit by Andy for the most part. Auror's low, and so is Scream. Jump over the wall can be enough. Venenu goes down off screen, and there's 2 players in Splyce jerseys that could be next. Aror certainly will. Nice job from Aror. The path north to send everybody that way and save Scream.
2 for 1. Cyno's decision to keep the fight going on a CycloneSpin, probably not great. I mean, I get that you're getting low, you're relying on that Pele passive, you are in your ultimate already, so your volcanic lightning autos are doing an awful lot. But there was a 4-level differential there. I wonder if Scream could have survived if he would have just run away from the get-go, or from Cyno rather could have survived. But well played by Space Station to, again, they're learning. Game 2, they can test the objective itself and end up getting wiped and losing for it. There, Space Station just kind of posture for the retreat. BaRRa swings a little bit wide. Jeff swings a little bit wide. They don't dip their toe in the water of the Ice Assault and try and steal it away. Instead, they just prep for the fight right afterwards, and it goes much better for them.
Much, much cleaner. That'll essentially keep the game tied. Space Station give that objective up, lose members themselves more than Cyno, or don't find anything off of that back. That's how Splyce found their first 2,000 gold lead in game number 2. And so with that in mind, Space Station improving, as you mentioned. These are all positive signs. You can take a look at that graph. I'm sure experience looks like the heart rate of a lot of Space Station Gaming fans here right now. But the gold difference, 500, can't even hang a hat on that, man. This is SSG looking much better. Of course, we know the powder keg that Splyce opened up in game number 2, so ain't nothing over. But right now it is totally anybody's game. Aquarius looking much better on this Osiris. I think he's going to be a key here for SSG today.
I completely agree with you. He's going to be a key every week for this team.
He has to be.
You've got to make plays, I think, if you're Aqua, and that's a lot of responsibility, to be sure, but just there's a lot on his shoulders right now.
Aror, lower impact this game. I think that's one of the big differences. Of course, game number 1, the Hercules was allowed to be played, and I use that word very intentionally. Blink driving strikes, murdersome. We saw some real interesting tech as well with some Blink Earthbreakers and stuff like that. Really interesting. Earthbreaker blinks. Game number 2, the Horus came out and rather impactful. Aurora was able to make some of these fights in the jungle. Here, we saw the red buff invade, but after that, he's been kind of quiet in the 14 minutes.
He had a nice play to make sure that they killed Cyno on the chase from Space Station's blue buff near the tier 2. But, I mean, 0-3 for Aror would never let that face him. He could be 0-30 and he would still be playing the exact same way.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not too worried about him. I'm really worried about Scream's farm rate. I mean, we're seeing the weakness of this Ares jungle. We talked about how the Searing Flesh buff and its interaction with Assassin's Blessing means that your clear is much faster, but you're still starting from a much lower point. Faster from Ares clear is, a low bar. to say the least. And he's not been maxing the Searing Flesh, I don't think. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's maxing the 2.
He's been maxing the chains.
After the 1? Okay, no. So, he maxes chains first and then is going into the Searing Flesh. But just having a longer cooldown, your auto's not doing quite as much. You see Cyno, he did it at the same thing in Game 2, where he was really ahead of Scream. And that's why people might be saying, oh, well, why aren't they banning the Ares? I don't think the Ares was really that scary.
I agree.
In Game 2, and Cyno outfarmed him pretty effectively, just took some bad fights. Cyno's outfarming him again on the Pele, and so far has picked better fights. As long as that continues, I think Spacestation's in a healthy spot.
Scream, the levels are interesting because usually when you talk about base damage, levels are the most important. You got 5 points in the chains. That's your ability to kill players. Your ultimate doesn't matter how many points, you know what I'm saying? So in no world am I saying, oh, it's good that Scream's down 2 levels, but it's less impactful than if he's, say, a damage-dealing character, you know?
Well, that's true, and Cyno's taking waves from people. I mean, he's been in BaRRaCCuDDa's lane a little bit, Cyclone's a little bit ahead. I don't know if that's the entire difference, but certainly doesn't help BaRRaCCuDDa. I mean, Venenu and andinster about even. Andy's actually a little bit ahead, but Scream does not take many waves, whereas Cyno definitely takes more, and that's also part of the reason why he's ahead, but it's also just faster rotation speed, faster jungle clear.
16 minutes in, we've got a tie game here. Spacestation leading by about 3 kills, but it's really just an illustrative stat. I'd be remiss, if you're just joining us, I'd be remiss to mention that it was basically tied last game at this moment, and it did end at 20 minutes. That said, it was a large mistake that, as Ryan has wonderfully painted, Spacestation are unlikely to make a second time here in game number 3. It definitely looks like they've improved from game number 2 and game number 1. All the mistakes have kind of, they've carried their save game over from 1, 2, and 3 like they're playing The Witcher or something. So good stuff there for SSG. Is it enough to take the win home is the question. This is a good look. They have vision. They're the only ones that have vision. But Scream is going to watch the solo lane walk over here. 10%. CycloneSpin can pop something down, but this one belongs to Spacestation. And the fight, they've got the numbers too. Cyclone with a nice shield, and Aror pops over the wall. JeffHindla uses the ultimate. This should be a disengage, and it will be, Ryan. And Spacestation Gaming confirmed their first lead of the set.
Much better for Spacestation there. They find a window where they outcleared both duo and mid. They know that Cyno's there. Aqua rotates in at the perfect time. It's one of the situations that looks really easy, like, oh, we're all here and we all outcleared. How convenient and nice.
Yeah.
It's not a coincidence. It's not an accident. They do it on purpose. Good forethought by Spacestation Gaming, and then we get the kill we know we can get, and we get out of dodge.
Aquarius in trouble here. No ultimate available, so he will fall down. I won't consider that part of the Gold Fury fight.
No, that was just thinking that you can clear the wave. And this is where this meta of, well, I'm the solo laner. I've been getting all this farm. I haven't died yet. I must not be behind. You are behind a CycloneSpin because he's level 18.
Fire Giants. Well, doesn't have a level. It's not EFG yet. It's just level 1, right? Splyce bringing down halfway. CycloneSpin does have the ultimate. Spacestation Gaming local. BaRRaCCuDDa coming around the backside. That might be early. No, the damage they're dealing is good. One more shot. Splyce get the Fire Giant. The fight after it. BaRRaCCuDDa's in a great spot, though, and Cyno takes down Scream already. CycloneSpin turns around and turns a spin on Cyno. Barra won't get the heal. There's a frenzy late game. And Aror gonna walk down andinster. Credit to SoloOrTroll for the kill. Aquarius on the backside looking for something else. But JeffHindla will fall. Aquarius will have to run away. BaRRaCCuDDa as well. Double kill for SOT. 3 players in the ground. The chase is still on.
Aqua's got to use the ultimate to get away. He's got a Pride Wind Shield, and BaRRaCCuDDa has been left for the Wolves. SoloOrTroll, the alpha there, and he gets the triple. That fight, I hope they're able to get that on the desk, because I want to see what goes wrong there for Spacestation Gaming. I mean, Barra finds a beautiful flank, and he's in a great position. Cyno's right there with him. And then Splyce just don't take any damage. And it must have been Scream's shell that changed it. It had to have been, because otherwise I don't understand where all the damage went from Spacestation. It looked like they were going to be able to really clean house, and Splyce is able to turn that on its head, and really, I imagine Spacestation's like, how did we lose that? And I'm kind of right there with him.
Well, you mentioned the shell. Don't forget, bolster defenses is going to boost your team
That's
as
true,
well.
too.
Bolster defenses is gigantic, and I think people forget about these numbers. Level 3, 30
Ability's OP.
prots. Just let me hit this button. Y'all get 30 prots, and you'll be stunned for that's.
And 20% CCR.
And that's only, by the way, shackle bonus. If he's chaining people,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
bolster defenses is gigantic.
It's pretty crazy. I can't recall if he used it beforehand or if that's what got popped right away, but that's tough for Space Station because I'm right there with him. I felt like that was going to be a great fight for them.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the enemy jungle is tanky already and providing bolster defenses to the rest of the team. Obviously, SoloOrTroll is tanky. CycloneSpin has Ethereal Staff.
The big thing is that all of Splyce's carries had their relics up as well. I mean, you look at how similar the timing is between Venenu and CycloneSpin's relics. Exactly the same for Beads and Aegis. So those were used pretty much simultaneously.
I can actually see the team fight there. The beads were both used when BaRRaCCuDDa double stunned them,
Yep.
and then the Aegis happened 20 seconds later. That's kind of funny.
I mean, when the carries both have both their relics up, it's hard to win the team fight even when you're in a great position.
BaRRaCCuDDa again gets a nice flank. Look at Aror save CycloneSpin. The ult helps out as well, but it's still not enough as BaRRaCCuDDa unleashes the demons. Scream in trouble.
Watch
Will
out for
grab
Solo.
some players, but the double kill for BaRRaCCuDDa. That said, it's
Oh,
the
man.
SoloOrTroll show. 3 kills. Venenu steals the 4th, and SOT gonna walk down Aquarius with the help of his carry. Jumps forward. Aquaman half HP. The bees are good. SoloOrTroll again makes a huge impact in this game. Oh man, that's how you want to enter the Pro League. That's exactly what you want to do.
Beast.
Just, I mean.
And that fight is so well played by Space Station because we know the relics are down. So we have to fight outside Phoenix before they are ready to get in here and fight us. So let's catch them by surprise. A great route again by BaRRaCCuDDa and andinster. Find Venenu, find CycloneSpin, who was the #1 target you have to kill. They kill him right away. Everything's great. Aqua gets in there and hits a big cursed Onk. But the problem was that SoloOrTroll was out of range. You really need that to hit because you need that healing from Kingslayer to be reduced.
Yeah.
It wasn't. SoloOrTroll gets into the fight, full HP, no one looking at him. Everyone turned around looking elsewhere.
Crazy.
And he cleans house.
I mean, that's basically that's a fake pentakill in his debut game.
Yeah, it was Penta territory, no
That's
doubt.
absurd. I mean, listen, I know SoloOrTroll. If Venenu doesn't get that 4th kill, SoloOrTroll is a little bit. He's running a little faster for that 5th one, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think if Venenu doesn't get kill number 5, that is not even a technical penta. I think the game says penta because he hustles for it. I watched SoloOrTroll kind of stand there when Venenu got the 4th kill. I'm just saying. But you're allowed to do that if you're going to clean up. That time, BaRRaCCuDda's flank gets caught. BaRRaCCuDda's going to be pulled in, and everybody says, "What's up, man? We caught you. Fool me once. You're not going to fool me twice." Cyno answers back, but again, it's the SoloOrTroll show. Here comes help from Aror. JeffHindla gets stunned out, and sets it up. Down the support goes. Big plays all day. CycloneSpin takes another one down. 4 for 1. Venenu's toasted, but they're just going to go for it, I think. Aror trying to decide, and yeah, it's all about the Titan. Teleport comes in. Frenzy means fight. Cyno's the lone defender. Aror and the boys don't have a ton of damage, but Scream can kill Cyno. You don't got to kill it fast. You just have to kill it. 3 games up, 3 games down. Scream's laughing, and that goes to Splyce.
Yeah, I know I said game 1 that, are you really that scared of the set? Isn't it worse than Aurora's Hercules? I'm sorry. I was wrong. SoloOrTroll wins that game.
Yes.
Splyce. I mean, Cyclone as well was huge, and he's the one taking all the damage in the late game. He's the one who did it so much in the mid game. But you need to have that secondary or tertiary win condition a lot of the time when your carries are getting focused in the late game. In SoloOrTroll, I mean, that fight by the back harpies, a lot of teams outright lose, not the game necessarily, but lose their lead right there, lose all their momentum. SoloOrTroll did it, man. He had a great fight.
Again, I need to reiterate, this is a minor league call-up coming out and then exactly when they needed to. This is what you dream of if you are SoloOrTroll or Splyce. Both teams very happy to be where they're at right now. 3 games, and they all go to Splyce. We'll break it down right after this.
Alienware, the official PC provider of the SMITE Pro League.
Welcome back to the SMITE Pro League one more time. I'm still Finch, and we have just finished that set there between Splyce and Spacestation. Spacestation had some moments where they looked good, but for the most part, Splyce cleaned that up. Taco is right here next to me. She's going to help me break this one down. I mean, you heard them say on the cast that maybe Spacestation showed some marginal improvements throughout the set, but for the most part, the end result was the same every time.
I think that Game 3 definitely caught me. I ate some crow. I'm not going to lie. I think that the Pele switch up was a much better look for Cyno there in Game 3, but ultimately Aquarius, for as fantastic of a start as he started to get the ball rolling for Spacestation, I think that he also simultaneously was part of their downfall. That mid-pick where Aquarius was taken down by a very aggressive push-in from Splyce, and then they instantaneously switched from mid straight over to the Fire Giant, and that Fire Giant, Finch, I really wanted to break it down here, because this, for me, was the ultimatum turning point here. Space Station weren't really left with much of a decision.
Their timing was actually really good.
That's the thing, is that BaRRaCCuDDa, and we can go ahead and take a pause right here. So the big thing to know,
you should win from this freeze frame, by the way.
This is it though.
The fight.
It looks so promising for BaRRa. He even opts to drop the Zhong ultimate a little preemptively. That way he knew he would be entering this engagement with that ability already toggled on. But unfortunately, as it continue to transpire here for Space Station, I think that andinster being just a little bit too far back there with Cyno, so a lot of that follow-up damage just took a little too long to connect, and that gave Venenu and Scream, well, Scream not so much, but Venenu on the other hand was able to create some space. And another pause here if we can. You can see already Aror is channeling that Horus ultimate on the bottom side, and not only that, but there's a lot of focus from Space Station just on this backside. So already you're seeing a segmented fight between these two teams, except Splyce is the one who's a little bit more grouped up here. And the turnaround from Aror, where he was able to find the knock-up, and that led into a really nice Spirit Ball Wingus combination from CycloneSpin. It was just the choke point usage by Splyce that really turned that Fire Giant fight around for them. BaRRaCCuDDa had the right idea, but unfortunately Space Station just wasn't all in position immediately to find the follow-up they needed.
Yeah, I think Venenu had a really good Aegis right when BaRRaCCuDDa made the initiation. A sick turnaround initiation from Aror too. He absolutely played that fight out of his mind. It all set, really. So no big surprise that they would eventually have that kind of performance. And as big as that fight was, there was the fight that happened a little bit later on. They're by like back harpies on Space Station side of the map, and then it's this set that turns the fight around again. A huge fight from SoloOrTroll.
I think we saw a little bit of that confidence aspect from
Yeah.
SoloOrTroll that
He's
we've been
feeling it now.
waiting for. I mean, now that he's main roster for sure, I guess he's got to understand the kind of potential that he's really capable of. But it was really nice seeing him kind of come into his own. You could really tell that as the set progressed, so did SoloOrTroll's confidence with it. And I think Aquarius there having so much success in that game 3 for SoloOrTroll to be a heavy contributing factor to shutting that down. That's what really, I think, helped him to just understand that he could afford to be a little bit further up, a little bit more willing to start the initiation there. And that gave Aror so much space and so much time to make a decision as to whether he wanted to peel or just keep the fight going.
Well, it's really good to see SoloOrTroll coming into his own a bit. As happy as that makes us, I can think of two guys that might like it even more. Aror and Venenu are standing by for an interview.
Congratulations on your win, first and foremost, Aror, Venenu. Coming into phase number 2, I mean, this is a statement game, but I wanted to ask you about the format. You know, with everything kind of hanging over from the first phase, it all comes together. How does that change your approach into phase number 2, if at all?
The approach doesn't really change. Like I said in a million interviews before, and like everybody says, it's like the cliche thing: just take it one game at a time, one set at a time, and that's what we do. So we're not going to stray away from that at all.
Last time you guys played up against Space Station, it was a little bit harder for you. You still came in with a win, but much cleaner today. Did you go back and watch any of those and take a look and see how you improved?
We didn't really look at the previous games. We kind of just looked at yesterday's games. Thankfully, we got to see what they were playing. But, I mean, before they even played, we pretty much kind of guessed what they were going to play, and they kind of played exactly what we saw. So we were pretty prepared even before they played.
Yeah, I wouldn't call him super clean the last game.
Yeah, the last game was not clean.
I played pretty bad in the last game, but it's fine. SoloOrTroll played amazing though.
Yeah.
The entire set, he did phenomenal. So it was great.
You took my question, Aurora. It's exactly where I'm going for. Minor league call-up comes in. There were a lot of question marks, and that can really kind of hang over a team when you're not sure what the future is. You've got SoloOrTroll, obviously performed well. Talk to me about his call-up and the future of the team.
Yeah, it's cool. We played with him against Rival in the first phase of the SPL, and he did pretty well there. We took a game off them. That was right after, that was like our first set back actually. So there was a lot of pressure on him during that set. And I feel like he didn't really have a lot of experience playing against higher end teams. He got some scrims there. He got some good experience just playing SPL on SPL game day. And then after that, he went to SML after we took Basket. He took Basket and Spot. He got some practice there. And he got a lot better from when we played with him the first time. And he's still learning and improving every day, and he's already really good. So it's going to be really scary in a couple months down the line from now. So it's really cool to have him as a teammate, and I just hope he keeps getting better and better.
Vanna, when talking about Splyce, everyone always talks about the big changes that were made when they brought in Scream and Baskin and oh yeah, Venenu. Like, do you feel that same way, that you don't get that same tier of credit you might deserve for this team?
No, I don't really care for the credit. I'm not like a big, like, I don't need to be the star or anything like that. I'm pretty much a big team player, so I don't really care about the credit or anything. Like, a W is a W in the end of the day, like, no matter how you do it. I could be 0-10 and we win. Like, it's just part of the plan, you know?
Last question before I let you guys go. Again, today's performance, fantastic, and a big change from what happened, you know, towards the end of the split with some question marks. How much more confident are you now versus before Midseason Invitational, or did you just know everything was going to work out?
I feel pretty confident about how everything worked out. It wasn't everything is always all over the place, like especially in esports. So nothing goes as planned, but that's a good thing because it keeps you on your toes. And I feel like how everything ended up working out, it worked out really well for us, and I'm happy. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, today was the big show day for Solo, and see if he could bring it in and everything like that. Everything we practiced and all, he's like doing very, very good in practice and everything. So I'm proud of him. I mean, he did really, really good. So he's just gonna keep killing it, I'm pretty sure.
Great stuff, guys. Again, congrats on your victory. Great way to start off phase 2. Aurora and Venenu, great job. Back to you guys on the desk.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Always love to get a chance to hear from Aror and Venenu. Those two guys have great minds for the games, and obviously a ton of trust in SoloOrTroll. I do want to let you guys know that you can have some more fun at home since the SPL is about to wrap up. The battle for Olympus skins are out there right now. Get the Zappy Chibi Zeus, as well as you can get the Spirit Sun Hou Yi right now. Look at that. That's pretty cool, right? Go out and grab those. Taco, We're towards the end of this here, man. I hopefully we'll be able to go
Spirit
and take
Son
a
Hu
look.
Yi is a total bad boy, by the way.
Yeah,
I got to throw that one out there. The
Is that
skin
your thing,
itself,
Taco?
I mean, it's the horns and the arrows. It's something about that like pointy symmetry. I don't know how to describe it, man, but it's just I love that skin.
Well, you guys know who you're supposed to be cosplaying now, right? When you come see Taco at Hi-Rez Expo, come in that one for. Let's take a look at the standings, though, if we can, please, and where everyone shakes up after that first week of Phase 2 action. And we feel like we're seeing way too many numbers for Week 1. That's because, remember, the Phase 1 records did roll on over. That's why Space Station really needed to be able to find at least one win this week, and they couldn't. Hopefully, they can clean it up next week. Speaking of that, let's take a look at what games you can expect to see. E-United SK, Rival Dig, actually with a doubleheader and a tough one, so that's big for them. And then Obey under the new banner playing against SK.
Should be really exciting matchups all around, Finch, and it'll be really interesting to see how all of these teams are going to take. Well, the ones that went to MSI in between MSI and Phase 2, and even the ones who had to watch it from home, I mean, I still think that there was plenty to learn and take away from that land.
Yeah, those are the ones I want to see more than anything, to see what kind of growth they've been able to make. But you do not want to miss any of that. Remember, it's going to be Thursdays and Fridays, back to the normal start time, I imagine, with 2 games. So make sure that you are here for that. I'll see you all next time. Have a good rest of the day.